Welcome to the next in the series of speaker interviews for Memphis Agent Camp 2026. My guest this evening is Mr. Bill Wilder. Bill, how are you doing this evening, sir?
Doing great, Doug. Good to see you.
Good to see you again. Bill is one of our 3 or 4 return speakers from last year when it was the Memphis Global AI Boot Camp. But Bill, why don't you refresh everybody's memory? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am in the Boston area. From a technology community point of view, I was the founder of and have been co-running these days Boston Azure AI for I think 16 years now. I'm a longtime developer, so hands-on builder, and like the rest of the development planet, a few years ago, I started to get on board with this AI thing because I think it might catch on. And which brings me to your event, Doug.
And it did catch on. And now one of the things that has caught on really are agents, and that's what you're going to be talking to us about on March 16th is making agents work. So why don't you give us the TLDR behind that?
Sure. So a year ago, I don't remember what I spoke about at your event last year, but it was something AI related, but it wasn't agent related. That wasn't really on the radar. And we've elevated from programming against an LLM to creating chatbots to now creating agents. And you can put together an agent in, very short amount of time, an hour, say. But putting an agent in production is a different matter. And that's what my talk is about. It's called Making Agents Work. And I cover 4 kind of broad topics that relate to going from the lab to in front of users. The first one is observability. And everybody in development knows what observability is by now. But there's a little bit of a different spin on it with a agentic world. You still have you need to see what's going on. There's OTel, open telemetry, which brings a perspective, and there's a lot of first class integration with OTel concepts, Azure, which I'm going to be Microsoft Foundry and Azure services are adopting OTel as well. So that'll be a big part of the observability story. So you can't manage or operate what you can't see. So that's observability. There's also safety guardrails. It's sort of related to observability. It's things like content filtering and hallucination detection. And there's platform support for that in the Microsoft Foundry, for example, which we'll be showing. So this is things like what happens if somebody tries to use inappropriate language in your agent, and it becomes input for your agent, but you're not really expecting it. You can have use the platform tools to defend against that, and that becomes related to observability because you want to know that it's happening. Things like that, you want to track it. PII detection. Maybe you don't want people putting PII in your agent, and there's some other things there too. So this is like seeing what's happening and keeping things safe. And then a third category is the term in the agentic or AI community is this thing called Evals, short for evaluations. And evals are the idea of looking at not just a few outputs and saying looks good to me, let's ship it, but doing it at scale. Is it repeatable? If I vary the input to the edge cases, what happens? Is my agent properly grounded? All these things come into play. What does the harness look like? How do I, how many different LLMs do I use or different subagents do I use to get the job done to keep the output stable? And the evals are the idea of tracking what happens in all kinds of different scenarios so that you can make stronger statements about this actually works 97% of the time because I ran it 10,000 times and I did the math. Or what happens if you change models? Your model was upgraded and your behavior changed. You want to rerun your evals to make sure that it still is successful 97% of the time or whatnot. But if you don't have evals set up, it's hard to move quickly in production. And the final category that I'll touch on is we woke up one day a few years ago and we could suddenly, as developers, do something we could never do before, which is operate in an incredibly interesting way with human language. And of course, that's the basis of the chatbot and basis of all kinds of other tools. It's behind, it's what makes agents so powerful. But it's not the right hammer for every nail. And I touch on what I call selective determinism, which is when not to use AI, even within your AI agent. So you can, the toolkit that I'll be demoing with is Microsoft's open source agent framework. And I'll show how, through an example, how you can use a workflow that does something that's LLM powered, then something that's LLM powered, then something that's just code, deterministic, because it doesn't need to be LLM powered. So you mix those in, you reduce the variability in what becomes what could be unpredictable with an LLM backed node in your workflow. And I'll pull them all together. And these are some important things I believe that help you turn the corner from prototype or lab work to get out in front of real users.
And that last one in particular, the selective determinism, reminds me of when I was in music school. I was a composer, and one day during a lesson, I forget what I had said to prompt this, but at any rate, my teacher reached into his desk and he brought out a unsharpened pencil. He stuck in the pencil sharpener and he sharpened it and he handed it to me and he said, "Which one is the most important end?" And it's like, yeah, it's not so much what when to write, but when not to write, or even when to remove, what you've already written. So it sounds paradoxical at first, but yeah, not every, like you said, when your only tool is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
It reminds me of a question like that about the pen, the pencil with a sharp end and the eraser is, why do cars have brakes? And if you don't think about it, it says, well, so they can stop. But the more philosophical answer is so they can go fast.
Exactly. So you're covering a lot. And what is kind of the main takeaway that people are going to walk away with who attend this talk?
Well, it's the big picture is that getting like the first 90% of getting your agent to work is in the lab, and wow, it kind of works. Then the second 90%, if you will, is these details. When you run it at scale, you run it at volume, and you try to see what the behaviors amount to. You end up doing some tweaks. You end up, we'll talk about things like how do you, as an example, one of the things I'll show on Monday at the event is I'll create an LLM, a custom LLM, custom deployment options that are way lower than we need. Right? We know we're going to exceed the transactions per minute or the the tokens per minute. But that's a pretty good way to put it into your agent to see how your agent fails when it runs up against a limit. It's pretty common to just say, well, I hope we never get a throttling error. But if you really want to make your system robust for production, which I'm in the throes of doing, you have to take actions like that. So that's really the lesson is these are necessary steps to be a responsible developer of AI in 2026. My context actually of, I've been working on this for a bit for a ed tech startup and open admissions. And this is going to help students make decisions. You don't want to mess around with that. You want, it's important to get the methodology right. We're actually taking a methodology that's about 30 years old, a proprietary methodology that's been used by hundreds of thousands of humans to help them make better decisions. And we're trying to scale it with AI. So we have a methodology. We know what's right. We know what's wrong. And we'll we just want to do it responsibly so that that when it hits students, it's helping them, not anything else.
Well, that sounds like it's going to be a very interesting talk. And I want to remind everybody that Agent Camp Memphis is this coming Monday, March 16th, 2026. It is virtual, it is free, and if you go to this shortened URL right here, you'll be taken to the meetup page where you can RSVP, and I will shortly be sending out details to everybody who is RSVP'd about how to access the sessions and such. All right, so again, the title of Bill's talk is Making Agents Work. If you want to reach out to him, you can reach him at Coding Out Loud on X/Twitter. It's also on LinkedIn, Bill Wilder. And then you have an interesting project at agentframework.dev. Why don't you close things out by telling us about that?
Yeah, this started at the end of 2024. And it was Jason Haley and myself and a guy from Microsoft, Juan Pablo. And the three of us put on an event, which was an all-day developer boot camp, where you show up with your laptop and we give you some access to what's today Microsoft Foundry, and you would we'd have labs that would walk you through, and you'd be coding in it all day. It was a full day session. We've reinvented it in the last couple of months. It's now Uday, who you know, Uday Upper Image Engine, and Jason and myself. So the three of us carrying it into the agent framework world, because it's semantic kernel is vanished. That was the original name of it. But yeah, so if you go to agentframework.dev, that has some a little bit of history from our first workshop that we held, I think a couple of months ago at this point, and we have a couple more in the works, so you can track it there. And these are free but in-person events, so it's not as applicable for if you're not in the Boston area. Although we are, let me know on LinkedIn or Twitter if you'd like a virtual version.
Well, Jason has come down to Memphis, so hey, you and Uday are welcome to come down there too and put one on. Well, Bill, thank you very much for spending some time and letting us know about what's going on Monday, and we will see you on Monday at Agent Camp.
Sounds great. Thank you, Doug.
All right.